What's up you guys, and today I'm back with another true crime video, and today I'll be talking about the case known as the Cleveland House of Horrors or the Ariel Castro Kidnappings. Now, Ariel Castro was born in Puerto Rico on July 10th, 1960, and when he was a young child, he and his family moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where other extended family members had already lived. In 1992, he bought a house at 2207 Seymour Avenue. He initially lived there with his wife and 3 daughters and 1 son. However, he was allegedly violent towards his wife, but the case was later dropped on a technicality, but his wife left him in 1996 and took custody of their 4 children. The first woman that Ariel Castro had ever kidnapped was Michelle Knight, and Michelle Knight was born in Naples, Florida on April 23rd, 1981. Michelle had a poor childhood, and she was also raped by a male family member while she was a young girl that continued throughout her life. This man would continually rape her and torture her. When Michelle was 15 years old, she actually ran away from her house, and she was living on the street. She would sleep in garbage bins, rummage for food, until one day she met a guy who was a drug dealer, and he gave her a job and she lived with him. But when he was arrested, she went back to the streets. Throughout her high school years, Michelle was bullied a lot. She was very short. She was only 4'7", and so her classmates would call her Shorty. Michelle then became pregnant with her son, and she dropped out of school to give birth and to be a mother to her son, Joey. One day when Michelle was out looking for a job, she had left Joey in the care of her mother and her mother's boyfriend. And her mother's boyfriend was known as an angry drunk. And so when he was watching Joey, he was drunk and he got frustrated with the kid, or something happened where he grabbed his leg and he twisted it. And it was actually broken pretty bad, and he had to be taken to the hospital. And CPS showed up at the hospital and took Joey away, and Michelle really wanted to get Joey back. On August 23rd, 2002, Michelle had left her cousin's house to go to the court hearing to find out what she had to do to get her son back. And while she was on her way, she had gotten lost. This was before the time of GPS on cell phones and everything. So she went into a dollar store to ask for directions. The clerk did not know where she needed to go, but she heard a familiar male voice say, "I can take you there, I know where it is." And when she turned around, it was the father of an old childhood friend that she knew from school, and this person was Ariel Castro. Instead of taking her to the court building, Ariel had taken her back to his house. And the way he got her into his house was he was promising a puppy that she could give to her son. And when she went down into the basement, he had locked her in there and he had raped her. The first day of captivity, Michelle was in the basement. She was tied up with extension cords where she was beaten and raped, and she was left to dangle from her arms, and she was gagged with duct tape and a sock. After she was raped for the first time, she was left chained in the basement, and for the first 8 months of captivity, she was not allowed to bathe. She had a bucket that she could go to the bathroom with, and she was only given food once, maybe twice a day. And then Knight was then moved out of the basement to Castro's room, where he would unchain her to rape and to torture her. After a few weeks, Castro had given her a radio, but he warned her not to listen to anything from black artists. And then he also bought a pit bull puppy for her, and after 7 months, when the puppy became aggressive towards Castro because he was protecting what he knew as his owner, Michelle, and he then took the dog outside and killed it. Then after several months of captivity, Castro had given Michelle a TV and then warned her the same thing, as not to listen to anything from black artists. For the first winter in captivity, Michelle was left chained and naked in a bedroom for months. Since she was repeatedly raped throughout her captivity, Michelle became pregnant a total of 5 times, and every time she became pregnant, Castro would beat the crap out of her every single time, which would lead to miscarriages. And Castro is actually the reason why she cannot have any more children. And Michelle believes that she was treated the worst out of all 3 girls was because she wouldn't let Castro break her, no matter what he did to her or how bad she felt. felt she wanted to live because she wanted to see her son again. Michelle also gave birth to Amanda's baby, and she was told that if the baby had died, Castro would kill her as well. And also, Michelle does not believe that her family went looking for her during captivity. Because she had ran away once, they just all believe that she ran away again, and that's why she was never reported in the missing persons network in Cleveland. The second woman to be kidnapped by Ariel Castro was Amanda Berry, and she was born on April 22nd, 1986. Now, at the time that she was kidnapped, Amanda had worked at a Burger King just to make some extra money, and her mother never wanted her to walk home because of the area that it was in. However, the day that she was kidnapped, a day before her 17th birthday, on April 21st, 2003, Amanda's mother and sister were both working and she was unable to find a way home. She also was thinking about calling out that night so she could go hang out with friends because her birthday was the next day. However, she still decided to go. And when she was walking home, she kept seeing this van. She saw it a total of 2 or 3 times, and the last time she saw the van, she had recognized the person who was in it. And it was, once again, a father of a friend that she knew from school, and he offered to take her to his daughter so they could hang out. And Amanda liked this idea because she hadn't seen his daughter in a long time. The first 8 days of her captivity, Amanda was raped a total of 25 times. And right away, Amanda's mother had reported her as a missing person. And the police tried to say that she ran away, but her mother didn't believe this. And she fought for media coverage for her daughter, and she did everything that she could to be able to find her daughter. A few days after Amanda was reported missing, Castro had actually called Amanda's mom. He said that he had married her daughter and she would never see her again. And right away, her mother reported this to police, but unfortunately they were unable to track the call. Now, Amanda did not meet Michelle until May 1st of that year. One of the things that Ariel did to the people that he kidnapped were he tried to make them jealous of each other, and they didn't want them to be friends either. On Christmas Day 2006, Amanda went into labor, and she had to give birth in an inflatable pool, and she was also only unchained just long enough to where she could give birth. And she gave birth to her daughter, Jocelyn. And at first, she was not breathing. And so Michelle did everything that she could to make the baby breathe again. And fortunately, she was able to save Jocelyn. Amanda wanted Jocelyn to have somewhat of a normal life that she could have. When Jocelyn became old enough to where she would be starting school, Amanda had actually made a makeshift schoolhouse so Jocelyn would be able to learn everything that she needed to know. Jocelyn was also taken outside with Castro, and when people would ask who she was, Castro would say that she's the daughter of his girlfriend. And one day, Jocelyn had asked why Mommy and the others are in chains, and that day, Castro unchained them. If Jocelyn got away or something happened to Jocelyn and she had told that her mommy and 2 other girls were in chains, then that wouldn't seem right and that he would be caught, so he had let them out of chains. Another thing that Castro allowed them to do was the 3 girls were allowed to watch Jocelyn play outside, but they had to be wearing disguises. In July of 2012, Jocelyn had actually seen the case of J.C. Dugar, and she gave Amanda hope that if she was in captivity for this long with her 2 daughters, that they will be able to get out too. So she never lost hope. One of the shows that Amanda watched when she was in captivity was the Montel Williams show, who was the psychic, and people would go on to her show, people who were looking for people who were missing or other cases, and Amanda really wanted her mom to go on it. And so one day her mom did appear on the show, and the psychic told her that she would never see her daughter again and that she had died. And Amanda, when she saw this and she heard this, she felt so terrible because she was watching the show and she's like, I'm not dead, I'm right here. Amanda didn't want to lose hope on that. She wanted to see her mother again, and unfortunately her mother did pass away from medical conditions when Amanda was in captivity, so she was never able to see her mother again. The third and final person to be kidnapped by Ariel Castro was Georgina DeJesus, and she was born on April 1st, 1990 in Cleveland, Ohio. On April 2nd, 2004, Gina and her best friend, Ariel Castro, were walking home from school. and Arlene was given $1.25 so that she could take the bus home, and however, she wanted to use this to buy snacks and gum. And Arlene wanted to go over to Gina's house, so she had called her mother from a phone and asked if she could, and her mother said no. So then the two girls went their separate ways. Gina had seen Castro, and Castro offered to give her a ride home. And so Gina took up on his offer and got into the car, and once again he took her back to his house. Now Castro says that he had been planning her kidnapping for months. He had been stalking her, trying to figure out the right time when to kidnap Gina. So even if Arlene's mother said yes, she would not have been kidnapped on that day. There's a good possibility that she could have been kidnapped any other day after the day that she was kidnapped. What was different about Gina's and the other two girls' abductions were that Ariel had knew her family. He didn't rape her right away. In fact, the first time he raped her was over a month after she was kidnapped, and it was on May 7th. And every time that he would rape her, he would put a bag over her head because he didn't want to see her face. And since nobody had witnessed the abduction, no Amber Alert had been put out for Gina, and this frustrated her father very much so. And her family had also worked very closely with police and FBI investigators to find Gina, and they suspected a link between Gina's disappearance and Amanda's disappearance because they happened on the same block. That if two girls around the same age went missing, they had to be connected, but they could never find a connection between the two. Police actually investigated Gina's stepfather and her disappearance. They thought that he may have had something to do with it, when obviously he had nothing to do with it. And I know they were just doing police work, but this case frustrates me so much. It really does. One of the things that Castro would do to the three girls, or he would sometimes leave doors unlocked, and every time he would let the girls go a little bit farther until he would catch them and then beat them and torture them and rape them so that they would never escape. That when doors were unlocked, he was still there. One of the things that frustrates me most about this case, that the three girls, two of which would have been discovered earlier and Gina would never have been kidnapped, was on January 26 in 2004. The police actually came to Castro's house because of an incident of a child being left on a school bus. And when police were there, they just asked him a few questions and they never even entered his house. And Amanda and Michelle were both in there, and they could have been discovered that day, but unfortunately they weren't. So on August 23rd, 2005, the three girls were actually chained together in the basement because Castro's children were coming to visit. And even though like Gina's best friend was in there and the other two girls knew one of his daughters, they were so terrified of Castro that they would not scream out or yell out for help or anything. They just stayed quiet. And when they were in there, they actually compared stories of what had happened to them. They also had another chance to escape, but once again they were so terrified of Castro. And on August 29th of 2005, Barry and the other two girls were in Castro's van with the engine on, and Amanda actually had the chance to hit the gas pedal so they could escape, but they were so terrified of Castro that they didn't. And in 2009, Castro had declared them family, and they were not chained as often. While he had the three girls kidnapped, Castro had lived what would consider to be a normal life. He still worked, he still went out to bars and hung out with friends. Nobody would have ever thought that he had done what he did. His family even still kept visiting him. He wouldn't allow them to go into certain areas of the house because obviously he had three girls captive there. He continued to work as an elementary school bus driver until November 2012, where he was then let go, but he also played bass in a local band at local restaurants. And one of the things that he did disgust me so much is he even went to vigils for Gina and was there with her family, telling them they will find their daughter and everything will be okay, when little did they know that he was the one responsible for her kidnapping on May 6, 2013. And on that night, Amanda was screaming through the screen door on the front porch asking for help. Two neighbors had come along and had helped her escape with her daughter, and where she ran across the street, and that's where she just made that phone call. And when when police had gotten there, she told them that there were 2 other girls still inside the house. And when they searched the house, they found Michelle Knight and Georgina DeJesus. When police found Amanda and Georgina, they were like, we got them, we got the girls are safe. Because they didn't know about Michelle because she was never reported as a missing person, because everybody had just believed she had ran away again. After Michelle was found, she had only weighed about 80 pounds, and she was taken to Metro Health Medical Center where she spent months in the hospital. And she had a very bad infection that caused her to be in the hospital for months, and they didn't know if she was gonna survive this or not. And part of Michelle just wanted to die because her family had never went looking for her, and even though they showed up at the hospital, she didn't want anything to do with them. But despite everything, she survived, and then she was released on May 10th, where then she was moved to an assisted living facility where she stayed until November of 2013. Michelle didn't break her silence until July 9th, 2013, where she thanked the people who supported her, and she made her first TV appearance on Dr. Phil McGraw, where she had told him about everything that had went on during her time in captivity. And since her release, Michelle has actually written 2 books, and I will put the links in the description below so you guys can check that out as well. Since her release, she's also been an advocate for people who have been subjected to abuse, and she's also changed her name, and she's living a free, normal life now with her husband named Miguel, which she actually married 2 days to the day after she was released. And Michelle has not seen, from what I could find, that she has seen Joey since she's been released, but she found out that he was adopted into an amazing family, and even though that she could get him back through the courts, she does not want to do that because she doesn't want to disrupt his life. She wants him to come to her when he's ready for it, and Joey's almost 18, so if he wants to be able to see his mother, he can. And his adopted parents also show photos and memories of Joey with Michelle as well. And even though she can't have any more children, she would also love to adopt more children. After Barry and DeJesus were released, they actually became closer than they were before when they were in captivity, and they both wrote a short memoir about their time in captivity, and I will also link that down below in the description box so you guys can check that out as well. The 2 girls also received honorary diplomas from John Marshall High School. With raising Jocelyn to have such a normal life as she possibly can, Barry also has a segment on a local news stations that talks about missing persons cases, and she also works with the families as well. And since Gina was so young when she was kidnapped and she was chained so often, her bones are disfigured and she has trouble moving as well. Castro was arrested on the same day that the girls were found, and in July of 2013, he pled guilty to a total of 937 charges, which included kidnapping, rape, and murder for the 5 fetuses of Michelle and probably the other fetuses of the other 2 girls as well. And the reason why he pled guilty was to avoid the death sentence. On August 1st of 2013, Castro was given a life sentence plus 1,000 years in prison. He showed little remorse for the crimes that he committed, and he even repeatedly asked the judge if he could see Barry's daughter, and the judge said no. On September 3rd, 2013, Castro was found hanged in his prison cell. Prison medical staff could not get him back, and then he was relocated to a local hospital where they had pronounced him dead. Now, there were some controversies over his death. Some people believed he was trying to do some sort of pleasure thing where he was choking himself to set him off, basically, and the coroner was like, no, I saw the cell, I saw the conditions, I saw everything, I saw pictures, she did the autopsy, everything points to this was a suicide. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know that was such a crazy case, I mean, and it's frustrating to me as well with everything that could have been avoided and everything that went on, but I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below and hit the notification bell so you know when I post, and I'll see you in the next video.